I don't really know how to start a video about a large hole in my nose. So, I'm just gonna do it. So this video is gonna be about my septum piercing because it is stretched and I wear pretty big jewelry most of the time, so I get a lot of questions about it. So I thought it would be helpful just to have all the answers in one place. So, I got my septum pierced in either 2012 or 2013. I don't remember exactly, but I think that it's almost been about 5 years. I got it pierced at a 14 gauge initially, and then I waited about 2 years and stretched it in 2014. So it's taken me about 2 years to get where I am now, which is 6.5 millimeters, which is just larger than your standard 2 gauge. I was just gonna stretch it to a 2, but I wear silicone eyelets in my nose, and for some reason, Chaos, the brand that makes like the good silicone eyelets, most of their 2 gauge eyelets are 6.5 millimeters rather than 6 millimeters. So I went up half a millimeter. So yeah, basically that's where I'm at now. The jewelry that I have showing here is just a 6 gauge pincher. I don't have any jewelry, or well, I don't have any septum rings that are a 2, so I am just wearing smaller jewelry through my eyelet. For the last while, I wear mostly 6 gauge jewelry through eyelets just because I don't know, I think I'm happy with that size. The reason that I kept stretching past a 6, even though I like the look of 6 gauge jewelry, I have a lot of jewelry from when I stretched my ears, and I already had silicone eyelets that were a 4 gauge, and I thought that it would be really comfortable in my septum, so I went up to a 4, and then I just put my 6 gauge jewelry through it, and it was really comfortable, and it also makes it a little bit less sensitive because my cartilage is pretty close to my piercing at this point, so if I were to hit my nose or move my jewelry in a certain way, I can feel it against the cartilage, and it was just not very comfortable. So adding a silicone eyelet just gave it kind of an extra layer of, I don't know, it just made it more comfortable, and I'm able to wear whatever jewelry I want, and I can also stack jewelry in it, and whatever. It's also just more comfortable for me to wear a silicone eyelet by itself rather than a steel tunnel, especially when it comes to blowing my nose. I don't like blowing my nose when I have a steel tunnel in. It's just not comfortable. So yeah, that's that. A lot of people don't think that silicone eyelets are comfortable to wear in their septum, and it irritates their skin. I haven't really had an issue with it, but they do have eyelets that are coated with something. I probably should have looked it up beforehand. I don't remember what it is, but if you look on anywhere they sell Chaos software, you'll be able to find them. They're coated with something that just makes them more smooth, and it creates less friction, so it is more comfortable to wear in your septum or your ears or whatever. But yeah. So how I stretched my septum, at the small sizes, I just waited a while and then I would put a taper through it and then follow it up with the jewelry. But I didn't really, I thought that I had waited long enough, but with the way that my body is, my piercings will loosen up quite a bit, but they never loosen up fully to the next size on their own. So just putting a taper through was really uncomfortable, and it caused a lot of pain because it just wasn't quite ready. Even though it had loosened up, it wasn't all the way at the next size yet. So once I got to slightly larger sizes, I started taping. If you don't know what taping is, it is where you take a non-adhesive body-safe tape and you wrap a couple layers at a 1 or 2 layers at a time around a plug. And essentially what you're doing is when your piercing loosens up and you see a gap, you're pretty much just making, how do I explain it? Using the tape, you're making in between sizes in small increments from 1 gauge to the next, just so that it's slower and more gradual, as opposed to just putting a taper through in 2 seconds and then it wasn't loosened up all the way. As where with taping, like how I do it, it really depends on your body. But for me, I hope the lighting didn't just change too bad. I had to get up and let my cat in. Initially, I can put quite a few layers of tape on most of the time. So I just put that in my nose and keep it really moisturized and just overall keep the jewelry really lubricated with jojoba oil. Usually, I only will need to do 1 or 2 more layers until it's at the next size. So it usually takes me like a week. After like a day or 2 of having some tape on, I can usually add another layer. But like that, it sounds really fast. Don't go that fast if the jewelry won't go in. Like, don't force the jewelry in, otherwise it's gonna hurt really bad. People ask a lot if septum stretching hurts. It does hurt really bad if you don't wait. It's really easy to accidentally be a little bit impatient, and you will definitely feel it. Your cartilage will hurt, your nose will be really sensitive, and just kind of irritated, and you'll probably get really runny, and bumping it at all is like excruciating. It's so bad. Taping is nice because you can go really, really slow, or well, you can do really, really small increments without having to go super slow, at least most of the time. But really, like I said, it depends on your body. Don't rush it, because either you'll have to, like, you got 2 options. You can go a little bit slow but then get to the size you want, or you can go too quick and be in a lot of pain and like risk getting blowouts and stuff, and you know, have to heal between stretches from like tears and whatever. So it's always worth it to be patient. It also helps, it depends on what jewelry you want to wear as well, because if you wear heavy jewelry, or if you have a ring that you can like move around, that can help to loosen it up as well. I like wearing big rings, and I just play with my jewelry a lot without even realizing it, so it loosens up pretty easily. Some people, for septum stretching, or just stretching in general, do something called dead stretching, which is kind of what I do, but I use tape to kind of help it along. Dead stretching is, it's essentially where you just put the jewelry in and you don't use any tapers or anything. But the thing about it is that the correct way to dead stretch is to make sure that the jewelry actually fits. It's not like forcing the jewelry in if it is not at, if your piercing isn't already at that size. But if it's loosened up enough and you can put the next size in, that's what dead stretching is. If your nose has loosened up enough already, then you don't need to tape and you can just dead stretch. But if you're like me and it doesn't ever really get all the way up to the next gauge, then you can use a taping method. You could also buy in between sizes. Some websites, like I know where I get my jewelry from, Body Art Forms, they have some in between sizes in certain jewelry, but it's harder to find jewelry, and you'll end up spending more money if you buy like plugs or whatever that are like a 7 gauge, for example. But that is an option if you don't want to tape. But I just prefer taping because you can get every single in-between size because it's so thin and you can add any number of layers. Another thing about taping, I know of 2 kinds of tape that you can use. I use bondage tape. I know that some people also use PTFE tape. I have never used that, so I can't say anything about it. Bondage tape just seems like it makes the most sense to me because it's for the body. So the reasons that these kinds of tape are the kinds you use is because they are really thin and they're non-adhesive. There's no sticky stuff on it and it only sticks to itself. So you can wrap it around a plug and it just sticks to itself. And so you don't get any nasty like adhesive residue or anything in your ears, and it's not gonna, you know, whatever. As opposed to like if you wrap duct tape around it, you're gonna have like sticky residue and that's gonna like irritate your skin and it's gonna harbor a lot of bacteria and just like nasty shit. So that's the kind of tape to use. How I tape is when I'm in the process of taping my septum up, I just wear plugs because it's gonna be really difficult. Like you can't really properly tape a ring or like a pincher or anything. So I just wear steel tunnels in my nose while I'm taping. And what I do is I take a strip and cut it this way. The width just a little bit thinner than the wearable surface of the tunnel. And then I wash the tunnel and dry it, because even if it's already clean, I do that anyway just to make sure that there's absolutely no oils from my fingers or anything at all on it, because that helps the tape won't stick to it per se because it's not adhesive, but it creates like a static cling kind of thing, I guess. Otherwise you're gonna have a hard time getting it on the plug. And then I kind of just like roll the plug on my fingers to get the tape around it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's pretty easy. That's it. And then usually every day I will change the tape. You don't have to add new layers every day, but I just recommend changing it frequently because otherwise it'll get gross. So that's that. Those are the basics of taping. There's a lot more videos about taping on YouTube, because you can also use that method for your ears or whatever you want to stretch. It's not just for septums. So if you want more information on that, there is more information available. So frequently asked questions. I'm just gonna like rapid fire through some stuff real quick because I get a lot. Main two questions I always get are, what size is it and does it hurt? I answered both of those, but just to go over them again really quick, it's at 6.5 millimeters, and I wear 6 gauge jewelry most of the time. It can hurt really bad, but it doesn't have to hurt really bad, and you should avoid it hurting really bad. That's my best advice for that's what I gotta say. People ask, does it stink? Not if you wash it. Just clean yourself. Like if you have a hole in your body, then dead skin is going to have nowhere to go, so it's gonna just sit on the jewelry. So if you don't wash it, then it's gonna get gross. That's everything. Just take a shower and just wash yourself and it won't stink. However, I will say that certain materials for jewelry make your nose smell weirder than others, which is one reason why I like wearing silicone eyelets with other jewelry through it, because it doesn't smell so weird in my nose. But generally, no. If you keep your jewelry clean and everything is healed, it does not smell. Another big one is, does it change the shape of your nose? I haven't really noticed that it's changed the shape of my nose. Most of the stretch septums I've seen don't really change the shape of people's noses. I feel like it stretches more kind of into the tip of your nose and upwards rather than down. My nose, naturally, the shape of it I have a low septum and my nostrils are higher than it, so it makes the piercing look a lot lower just because that part of my nose is lower. But that wasn't because of getting a septum piercing or stretching it. Like, that's how my nose has always been shaped, and I haven't really noticed it making it more prominent. If it has, it's been subtle. But that also depends on the jewelry you wear, because if you wear heavy jewelry, then it will pull your nose down, changing the shape of it. But you'd have to be at a pretty large gauge to have heavy enough jewelry to like really notice that. But yeah, generally I don't really think so. Where do I get my jewelry? I've gotten all my jewelry from Body Art Forms. I will put the link to their website in the description. It's not sponsored, I just like them. Another question is, can you hide it? Because it's a common thing that you can flip your septum jewelry up to hide it. It really comes down to what size you want to stretch it to and what kind of jewelry you want to wear. I can't really flip mine up because I like to wear pretty big jewelry, and I frequently wear captive bead rings, and so I would have to pop the bead out every single time, and it's just like too big of jewelry to really be comfortable. If you like small jewelry, you can still flip it up, or you can just wear a plug or a silicone eyelet, and it is easy to hide. The only thing is, though, it also depends on your anatomy, because for me personally, because my septum is lower than my nostrils, even if I have just like a clear silicone eyelet in like I do now, you can still see it. When I turn to the side, you can just look straight through my nose. Personally, I think that's pretty cool. I like that. But commonly, people's septums are higher than mine, so a lot of the time you won't be able to see it if you turn to the side. So you can just wear an eyelet and it's hidden. They also make flesh-toned silicone plugs, so if you really needed to hide it and it is visible, like my nose, you could get one of those. But And then I think that the last common question is, why would you stretch your septum? There are a lot of different reasons, as just like with any type of body modification. I won't get into like the deeper reasons and the more analytical reasons, just because that's a whole other video entirely. But to keep it pretty surface and quick, I like the look of it. Like with the way that my face is structured and the type of nose that I have, and the fact that I have a small upper lip, I have a lot of space between my nose and my lip, and so I think that large jewelry looks really good. And I like the jewelry to kind of feel proportionate with the thickness of the gauge and with the diameter of the jewelry itself. I don't like really big but really thin rings, so I wanted to stretch it just to get kind of like a satisfactory proportion to my jewelry. I also think it's just really fun to be able to like see through my nose when I look to the side, or you know, put strange stuff through my tunnels and whatever. I just think it's funny and like kind of a neat trick, and it's just amusing to me. So those are like the most basic reasons, but as I said, the more analytical kind of psychological reasoning behind liking modifications is like a whole other video, but I think it's an interesting topic. So, but it's also very subjective. You know, it's even if I explain it, if you don't get it, you just don't get it, and that's totally fine. Just don't be like a dick about it, you know? The last thing I forgot, people ask a lot, is will I keep stretching it? I have no idea. I don't have any plans to. If I do stretch it anymore, it probably won't be for a little while, and I don't think I'll go much larger than I'm at now, just because I don't think it would be very comfortable in my nose. I can already feel the size difference between 6.5 millimeters and 5 millimeters, I think was the I don't know millimeters, whatever. I can already feel a difference, and this feels larger, especially with the flares of the eyelet. So I don't think I would go too much bigger just for comfort, but if I did, I might go to a 0. Higher than that, I don't think so. But I don't know. Really, like, I was gonna stop at a 6, but then I decided to go up to a 4 so I could wear a silicone eyelet, and then I was gonna stay there because it was really comfortable and I liked my jewelry. But then when I put that hook in my nose for that meat suit look that I did a little while back, I realized my septum had loosened up a lot more than I thought, so I was like, hey, might as well go up one more time. So that's kind of just how I've been doing it. I'm just winging it. That's really it. I don't have a solid answer. We'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, that's basically it. I don't know what else to say about my nose. Those are like the most frequently asked questions, and there's a lot of stretching videos on YouTube. Not necessarily, there's not a ton on septum stretching specifically, but other stretching advice applies to septums. So that's basically it. I'll put links and stuff in the description. And if you have any other questions, ask them in the comments here, and I'll answer them here, just so that all the information can be in one area for people to find it. So yeah, that's all I can really think of. I really hope I didn't forget anything. I don't know. Whatever, I guess we'll find out. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the flip side. I've got a third nostril. Wow.